is the first spoken language sample from June 2010. Okay, so here's the intro. Text A is a spontaneous transcript of two friends talking in a friendly, personal, informal context. Text B, on the other hand, is a political speech by Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, so has much more importance and formality. Text A's audience is just the two speakers, whereas in B there is a mass audience, as the media will record it and pass it on to many more people. The purpose of Text A is for Sue to find out about Kat's nursing course and for Kat to inform Sue about the course and her feelings about it. Text B's overt purpose is to explain his feelings about education, but more importantly the implied purpose is to gain support through the action of expressing his plans and ideas. It's mainly included everything that needed to be there. You'd probably have prepared speech by Gordon Brown, include that. I think the discussion of purpose is fairly lengthy and could be more concise, and some of the vocabulary in places is rather basic and could be made more formal and academic. Take a look at it and see what changes you would make. Okay, so the next one, the two texts address their audiences very differently. So they're actually following the framework. They're going for audience addressing first. I think it's quite a good idea to follow the framework because then you're not going to miss anything. You make sure that it's structured, and you can create fluency by making links between the paragraphs as you go. So Sue in Text A doesn't seem to want to ask questions outright at first, so begins with a phatic utterance, "How are you doing, Kat?" to establish a conversation before launching in. You would probably comment on the accent alongside this, so just to say that it is rather informal, and straight away there's that level of informality between them. This demonstrates her feelings of intimacy, probably because she's familiar with the audience. I think intimacy is a bit of a strange word there. They are just friends, I think. So just an informal situation might be quite good. And actually, when we've looked at this extract in class, it does seem rather awkward and less intimate. Okay, so I think you need to kind of get that element in there from the start. It's looked at phatic utterance, but hasn't really addressed anything else just yet. Text B launches in immediately to the point, "Now I am fortunate," which demonstrates that he has an attitude that, I don't know what, conciseness and precision are important. Conciseness? That's a bit of a strange word. An attitude he wanted to convey in order to achieve his implied purpose of gaining support. It's not really that clear how the personal pronoun I or that phrase gains support. It's not being explained fully there. In Text B, the personal pronoun we is used to show the feelings are conveyed by the whole audience, which adds a personal touch and creates a sense of belonging and intimacy with a large audience. You cannot possibly have intimacy with a large audience, so this student needs to stay away from that word, and I wouldn't personally use it in this context at all. It does add a personal touch, but this could have been explained further. So we allows the audience to connect with Gordon Brown's strong views expressed with the personal pronoun I initially, and the we creates that sense of belonging. So I think sense of belonging is quite nice, or the fact that we can connect with what he's saying better. The personal pronoun I often kind of creates trust for the audience, so they believe what he's said. They know he's fortunate, but now he's turned it to the party and he's looking at we, which is important. I think that transition from I to we hasn't really come across in this analysis. In text A, Kat uses the personal pronoun you when one would be more correct, conveying the information in an informal way, typical of spontaneous speech, particularly with a familiar audience, such as in this case. I'm not so sure that really says anything. One would be more correct, but how many of us use one on any kind of basis at all anymore? I think that point's completely relevant. I think in terms of how the you helps her to get across her point of view, that's what you should be looking at. So it's how the words help her to communicate her point of view, and it's similar to Gordon Brown, and actually the pieces could have perhaps been drawn together at this stage, because Kat addresses her audience with you in order to draw her in and make her feel as though she's living the situation alongside Kat. So that's important to look at. try and draw the text together wherever you can. Okay, so the language in both texts contrasts clearly. Problem with the start of this paragraph is that it doesn't connect to the first one. You've therefore got a generic framework with no connections and therefore no fluency in your essay. One look at the mark scheme will tell you that you're not going to get very high up without fluency in your essay, so you're going to have to connect those together. So if we look at the bottom of the previous paragraph, which is looked at kind of the informality and the familiar audience, you would say that this informality is emphasised or comes across even more clearly through, and then start looking at the vocabulary used. For instance, nouns such as stuff and a bit convey the information much more informally due to the familiar context. That's really nice. You're focusing on an individual word or phrase, which is really nice. However, there is some high lexical density, such as your clinical portfolio to do, and that could be coordinated. But that is because the nature and context of the conversation is one where technical terms are likely to be discussed, but it does convey as precisely as possible the something. Proofread your work, check that you've not got any missing words. I think they haven't really hit on the vocabulary here. You'd identify that clinical portfolio and coordinated are connected to the context. They're shared jargon that the two speakers have, and therefore can communicate more effectively using them. And so suit the context of the situation. I think the problem this student has is that the effect isn't thought about very clearly. The connections aren't made obvious to how the speakers get their point of view across, and that's what needs to be there. In contrast to the text A, such as the pursuit of wisdom and fulfillment of human potential, I think introducing any quote with such as is an awful way to do it. It's like using for example. It's fine and it will get you so far, but you'll be better trying to integrate it into your text. Just speak to me if you need help doing this. Have a go at a paragraph and I'll show you how to integrate them a little bit better if you're struggling with that. This conveys his feelings in an authoritative tone. The problem with this is that the students picked a really long quote and then said this conveys his feelings in an authoritative tone. They haven't actually said how that's achieved. So you'd have to say that his use of complex vocabulary means that he's able to convey his feelings in an authoritative tone. That is your analysis. The way this has been structured doesn't make it clear with the connection between the quote and the effect, and you have to make that really, really clear. It is typical of planned speech, as a person has time to redraft in order to convey his own feelings with strength to show he is a committed person and has strong ideals essential for the purpose of winning support. I think saying it's typical of planned speech is pointless. You don't need to show general knowledge, you need to show specific knowledge, so ensure your points are specific all the time. I think strong ideals is really nice and that should definitely be incorporated, but the rest of it is very general in terms of planned speeches and that should be avoided. Text A doesn't convey feelings quite as strongly, with less emotive adjectives being used, such as cool. This is most likely due to the familiar audience, so colloquial words are more likely to be used and an emotive adjective would be out of place. Yeah, I think this actually is probably some of their better analysis, because it's been taken right through to look at the context in terms of the familiar audience and then the explanation, so colloquial words are more likely to be used. They're perhaps getting into their analysis a little bit better by this point in the essay. We'll see as we go through, but that is much more effective. I think less emotive adjectives such as cool, maybe get a different quote to show that it's not just that one, because if you're suggesting that they don't convey their feelings quite as strongly, then you need to find another example to show that it's happening throughout rather than just in one instance. The styles of delivery are also different. Try and find other words for different. That's one to look up in the thesaurus and see what you can find. In conveying information, attitudes and feelings, again, no connection at the start of the paragraph. You need to refer to the one above. I'm not quite sure how convey the desired attitudes. Okay, it's going to be a tricky one to connect. So think about this in advance when you're planning your structure. Make sure that you can think about the connections between them. I think here it would be the differences in emotive delivery of each text lead into other differences in terms of the style of delivery. Okay, something along those lines might help. In text A, for example, fillers are used, in order to give the speaker thinking time so that she can deliver the most accurate information. It is accurate, but it's also that she's sensitive to the other speaker's opinions and how she might react. So she's well aware of the things related to that. This is typical of spontaneous speech, as the person had to think on the spot. Absolute rubbish, don't include that. You only need to make comment specifically to the extract you're given, so leave that out. Text B, because it is planned speech, the writer had had time to think about how to convey the desired attitudes. Get rid of that useless sentence, doesn't say anything. Therefore, there are no fillers, as there are in text A, but rhetorical techniques. Nice. Such as ascending trick 1, rule of 3. Using repetition and replacement, no cap, no ambition, no ceiling on hope, no limit to where your potential will take you. Okay, fab. This rhetoric emphasises the information, making it much more memorable and impacting key for the purpose of gaining support. No, this is a really general consideration of effect. We know it emphasises, but what is he emphasising? So no camp on ambition, no ceiling on hope, no limit to where your potential will take you. So he's gaining support for his education policy by suggesting and emphasising through the rule of 3 that there will be no ceiling on ambitions, or there will be no lack of opportunity for our young people. That is more specific. So you reinterpret how he is gaining support through saying that, rather than emphasising and making it more memorable. What is he making more memorable, and how does that affect the audience? So the audience leave with a sense that Gordon Brown feels there will be no lack of opportunities in education, and so feels positive to support his policy. That's the kind of thing you need to be doing. This rhetoric, I've already read that. Repetition is also used in text A to emphasise information. I never really got into classroom-based teaching, although possibly a false start. The repetition fits better with the strong feelings possessed. It's definitely a false start because you've got a micropause in the middle. They've identified that wrong, so it would be a repair because she's going back over what she was about to say. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker. Intensifying adjectives, if you want to know what these are, speak to me, but it's really very anything that emphasises something a little bit more. Definitely look at stuff like that. Text B uses more complex techniques than text A to give strength to the attitudes displayed. This is seen by the use of asyndeton in listing, the skills, the ideas, the insight, the creativity. This technique is used to show that the information and plans can be endless. A clever technique, don't evaluate the technique. To place emphasis on the conveyed information, more complex than text A because the ideas could be formulated over a longer period of time. I think get rid of that. But the asynthetic list there is the technique is used to show that the information and plans can be endless. Brilliant, you've thought about the effect. However, you need to get the audience into that. So the technique is used to show to the audience that the information of plans could be endless, therefore enabling them to support his plan. That's much better. Yeah, never suggest that a technique is clever or a good technique. Never analyse that. It's pointless. I've got less than a minute left, so I'm going to super quick do this paragraph. The structure of text A is mostly traditional adjacency pairs, chained together and following mostly a question and answer pattern. Nice. There are some overlaps. This is due to the familiar informal context. Absolute rubbish, you haven't analysed it yet. So why are they familiar, why are they informal? And yeah, analyse that in detail. It's said that she feels so strongly about it, but you haven't really said why she feels strongly or what shows she feels strongly. Okay, I'll let you look through the rest. I'm out of time. Okay, there are some good things here. More detailed analysis is needed.